Tonight, a handful of stories will walk beside you. Let's begin. The Thief and the Three Choices. In a quiet town where the streets turned golden at sunset and the rooftops gleamed with old tiles, there stood a grand estate. It belonged to a wealthy man. Someone respected, sharp-minded, and quietly generous. His home was the largest in the region, with strong walls, heavy wooden gates, and guards who didn't smile much, but did their job well. One evening, as the townspeople finished dinner and settled into their routines, a stranger arrived. A traveler with clever hands and questionable morals. He wasn't just passing through. He was a thief. As he strolled down the road, he noticed the estate from afar. Big house, well lit, clean paths, ice that spoke of wealth and comfort. The thief squinted, grinned, and whispered to himself, "That's the one. If fortune favors me tonight, I'll be richer than I've been in months." When midnight came, he slipped over the garden wall like a shadow. But once inside the grounds, his excitement faded. The estate was not sleeping. It was awake, in quiet ways. A guard stepped softly through the orchard. Another leaned by the storeroom, lantern in hand. Every valuable corner had eyes on it. The thief sighed. This was no place for quick gains. He turned around, ready to leave, empty-handed, but still free. As he tiptoed through the garden on his way out, something large and rough brushed against his leg. He knelt down and found a heavy burlap sack lying forgotten near the kitchen entrance. He opened it. Onions. Dozens of them. Some large and red, some small and sharp-smelling. Well, he shrugged. Better than nothing. He filled part of his own sack with onions. Not jewels, not gold, but at least he wouldn't leave entirely empty-handed. Just as he stood to leave, a hand grabbed his shoulder. He froze. A guard stared down at him, face unreadable. The next morning, the thief stood inside the courtyard, hands tied, looking quite different from the confident man he'd been the night before. Before him stood the landowner, calm and collected, listening as the guards explained the situation. This man entered the estate in the night. He was caught attempting to leave with a bag of onions. The landowner nodded. "So," he said slowly, "you came to steal, even if it was only vegetables." He paused, then added, "I'm not a cruel man, but wrong is wrong, and it needs consequence. So I'll give you a choice." He held up 3 fingers. 1. Pay a fine of 100 coins. 2. Take 100 lashes. Or 3. Sit here and eat every onion you tried to steal. Roll, one by one. The thief blinked. "I ate the onions?" he asked. The landowner nodded. "All of them." The thief laughed. "That's easy. I'd eat them." The first onion was bearable. Sharp, but manageable. The second started to sting. By the 4th, his eyes were watering. By the 6th, his mouth felt like it was on fire. By the 8th, his face was red, and he was gasping. I can't do it," he coughed. "Please, no more. I'll take the lashes." And so, the landowner ordered the guards to begin. The whip cracked in the air. 10 lashes. 20. By 40, the thief groaned. By 60, he collapsed. His back ached. His breath came in short bursts. He could take no more. He sobbed. I give up. I'll pay the fine. Please, just let it stop." The guards looked to the landowner, who nodded. The fine was paid. The thief, sore and limping, was released. As he left, one of the guards walked beside him and asked softly, "Why didn't you just pay the fine to begin with?" The thief gave a half smile through his pain. "I thought the onions would be easy. I was wrong. Then I thought the lashes would be easier than the onions. I was wrong again. Turns out, doing the hard thing first would saved me a lot of trouble. Moral of the story: we often try to avoid pain or effort by choosing what seems easiest. But sometimes, that easy road becomes the longest and most painful one. If we don't choose wisely the first time, we may suffer far more than necessary. The king who wanted to cover the world. Once upon a time, a great king ruled a prosperous country. One day, while walking through the countryside, a sharp stone pricked his foot and it began to bleed. He returned to his palace in great anger. "This is unacceptable," he declared. "My people and I should not have to suffer like this. I command that the entire kingdom be covered with leather so that no one's feet will ever be hurt again." His ministers were shocked. Covering the entire kingdom with leather would cost a fortune and be an impossible task, but no one dared to question the king's order. As preparations began, a wise old servant from the palace approached the king. With a bow, he said, "Your Majesty, I have a simpler suggestion. Instead of covering the whole world with leather, why don't you cover your own feet with a small piece of it?" The king was taken aback by the simplicity and wisdom of the suggestion. He had been trying to change the entire world to suit his comfort, when all he needed to do was change himself. He immediately ordered a pair of shoes to be made for himself and cancelled his previous command. The moral of the story: sometimes we try to change the entire world to make our lives easier, when the simplest and most effective solution is to change our own perspective and ourselves. The bag of feathers. In a small village, a man went around spreading a false rumor about the wise old monk who lived peacefully on the hill. Soon, the entire village was talking about the monk in a negative light. A few days later, the man who started the rumor felt a deep sense of guilt. He went to the monk, confessed what he had done, and asked for forgiveness. "I will do anything to make it right," he pleaded. The monk listened patiently, and then said, "There is one thing you can do. Take this bag of feathers, go to the center of the village, and scatter every single feather into the wind." The man was confused, but eager to atone for his mistake. He did as he was told and scattered all the feathers. He then returned to the monk and said, "I have done it, master." "Good," said the monk. "Now for the second part. Go back and collect every single feather you scattered and bring them back to me." The man was dismayed. "But that's impossible. The wind has carried them all over the village. I can never find them all." The monk looked at him kindly and said, "Exactly. Your words are just like those feathers. It was easy to spread them, but once they are out, you can never take them all back. Be careful with your words, for they have the power to travel far and wide, and you can never undo the harm they cause." This story reminds us of the immense power of our words and the importance of speaking with kindness and caution. Swapping the sorrows. There was a fellow just like us. He imagined, just like we do, "I am the one who suffers the most in this world, while everyone else is happy." One day, he prayed to God, "Oh Lord, there are so many people in this world. I accept that everyone has their own kind of suffering. Still, it feels like mine is a little too much. So if you could just do me a small favor. It's nothing else. Please take the sorrows I have and give them to someone else. Take their sorrows and exchange them with me. A mutual transfer, that's all." That very night, he had a dream. A voice was heard from the heavens. Do you know what it said? "Oh people, everyone, put your own troubles into a bag and come to the temple at the edge of this town," said the voice. "Aha, God has answered my prayer." This man thought joyfully. Immediately, what did he do? He put all his troubles into a sack and took it. He came out of his house and started walking down the street. And what did he see? A huge number of people, each carrying a bag, were heading to the temple. Some had tied their troubles into a large bundle, and were carrying it on their heads. He looked around. He was very surprised, because every bag he saw was bigger than his own. His bag seemed to be the smallest of them all. Now, he prayed to God again. "Oh Lord, looking at the current situation, it seems my own bag is not so bad. So, I don't want to exchange it for any other bag. This is fine. I think it's enough if I just go back home with this bag," he started to think. Everyone reached the temple. In the temple, the voice was heard again. "Everyone, hang your bags on the wall. Suddenly, the lights will go out. A bell will be rung. That is the signal. At that moment, in the darkness, you can exchange your bag for any other bag you want. You can choose. While there is still light, you can stand next to the bag you like," the voice explained. After it said that, the lights suddenly went out, and the bell rang. A little while later, the lights all came back on. And what did they see? Everyone was holding tightly onto their own bag. This man was also standing just like that. He slowly asked the person standing next to him, "Why are you still holding your bag? Didn't you hang it on the wall?" The other person replied, "No, my friend. For the same reason you're holding yours, we are all holding ours. We know at least something about our own sorrows. But the sorrows of others are unfamiliar to us, things we are not used to. So, it is easier to manage the troubles we know. To handle the unknown, we would have to start all over again from the beginning. That is why it is better to live with our old troubles." After that, the man decided his own bag was enough and returned home. The two monks and the river. Two Zen monks were on a long journey. They came to a wide, fast-flowing river. On the riverbank stood a young, beautiful woman who was afraid to cross. Without a word, the older monk walked over to her, lifted her onto his shoulders, carried her across the river, and set her down on the other side. She thanked him, and he simply nodded and continued on his way. The two monks walked on in silence for hours. The younger monk grew more and more agitated. He was fuming inside. Finally, he could not contain himself any longer. "Master," he burst out, "how could you do that? Our monastic vows strictly forbid us from touching a woman. You not only touched her, but you carried her on your shoulders." The old monk looked at him, his eyes calm and clear. He replied softly, "Brother, I left that woman by the riverbank hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story teaches a simple but powerful lesson. Many of us carry the burdens of the past long after they are gone. True peace comes from learning to let go of what has already happened. The man who fixed only one side of his roof. In a sleepy little town with crooked lanes and lazy cows, there lived a man named Thomas. Thomas had two favorite things in life: his perfectly combed mustache and his half-fixed house. Yes, exactly that. A house that was only half repaired. Ask anyone in town. They'd nod and say, "Ah, Thomas, nice fellow. But that roof of his, it's like a promise never kept." Yeah, man. One year, the rains came early. Heavy ones. The kind that drum on the rooftops like a tabla player in full mood. One night Thomas was fast asleep when, plop! Cold water hit his forehead. He woke up, looked up, and saw the ceiling dripping like a leaky tap. He ran around muttering things not suitable for print, grabbed an old brass pot, and placed it under the leak. In the morning, he called the local roofer. An old man named Simon, who spoke more with his eyebrows than with his mouth. Simon climbed up, inspected the roof, and came back down chewing a betel leaf. "Your whole roof is tired," he said. "Patch this now, and the other side will leak next week. Better fix the full thing." Thomas scratched his head, checked his wallet, and said, "Just fix the part above my bed. That's where the water hits me. The rest, let it be. It's not raining there yet." Simon raised one eyebrow so high It nearly touched the sky. But work is work. He patched the leaking part, took his money, and left. That evening, Thomas boasted in the tea shop, "No more water ballet on my bed. I sleep dry now." Some chuckled. Some shook their heads. Some just sipped their tea and said nothing. The universal way of saying, "Poor fellow doesn't get it." 2 weeks passed. More rain came. This time, Thomas heard splish-splash from the kitchen. He walked in to find water dripping near the stove. He sighed, fetched a steel bucket, and placed it under the leak. "All right," he muttered. "Kitchen's not my sleeping place anyway." Soon, the living room joined the party. Drip from the window, plop from the corner. Buckets, tumblers, plastic bowls, everything in Thomas's house was now part of the Great Leak management team. Each leak had its own container. Some even had nicknames. Visitors had to tiptoe like they were in a museum. One friend nearly slipped and said, "Thomas, your house is becoming a water park. Why not just fix the roof?" Thomas replied with a shrug, "Only one leak troubled me personally. That's fixed. These others, I can manage." One night, while placing his 8th bucket near the bookshelf, Thomas finally paused. He looked around. The walls had stains. The wood was swelling. The paint peeled like old onion skin. And suddenly, he felt a little foolish. He called Simon the roofer the next day. "Fix the whole thing," he said quietly. Simon nodded, without raising even a single eyebrow. It took 2 days. A new roof, strong and even. No leaks. No buckets. No acrobatics in the living room. And that night, Thomas slept through the rain. No cold water kisses. No surprises. Just peace. The moral. Some people fix only what affects them today. But life isn't so polite. Ignore a crack just because it's in the corner. And one day, the corner becomes the center. A leak is never just a leak. It's a whisper of a bigger mess, if you don't listen in time. The eagle that thought it was a chicken. At the edge of a forest, rising above the trees, stood a great old fig tree. Its branches stretched wide like open arms. At the very top, nestled securely in a tangle of twigs and leaves, an eagle had built her nest. One day, while the eagle was away searching for food, a mischievous monkey was leaping from branch to branch. As he swung through the upper canopy, he spotted the eagle's nest and, curious as ever, crept closer. Inside, there was a single large egg, smooth and warm. Without much thought, the monkey gently picked up the egg. He wasn't being cruel, just playful. As he descended the tree, he spotted a hen nesting by a garbage heap on the ground below. She had several eggs of her own. The monkey, with a grin, placed the eagle's egg beside the others and scampered off into the trees. The hen, unaware of anything unusual, simply gathered her feathers around her clutch and waited patiently for them to hatch. Days passed. The chicks began to break free from their shells. Tiny beaks, blinking eyes, soft fluff. Among them emerged one that looked a bit different. Its beak was sharper, its legs longer, its wings slightly wider. But none of the chickens noticed, not even the eagle chick himself. And so, the little eagle grew up, believing he was just another chicken. He scratched at the dirt, pecked for seeds and insects, and flapped his wings, but never flew. When the village dogs barked or the crows swooped down, he ran for cover just like the rest. He hid beneath the hen's wings when storms came, even though he had wings of his own. As the months passed, he became larger than the others. His feathers grew darker, his wings broader, yet he never questioned who he was. He simply believed, "I'm not good at flying. I'm not like the others up in the sky." One quiet evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned the color of honey, the young eagle wandered to the edge of the garbage heap. He looked up. Far above, soaring through the clouds with effortless grace, he saw 3 great birds, wide-winged, powerful, gliding as if the sky belonged to them. His heart stirred. There was something in their flight that moved him. Not just envy, but something deeper. Longing, doubt, recognition. I wish I could do that, he whispered to no one. To glide, to fly that high. An old rooster, worn and wise, happened to be nearby. He had seen many seasons come and go. You could, you know, the rooster said quietly. The eagle blinked. What do you mean? You're not one of us, the rooster said, nodding at the sky. You were born for that, up there. You just don't know it yet. The eagle laughed nervously. But I've lived my whole life here. I don't know how to fly like that. I'm just a chicken. No, the rooster said. You're something far more. You were raised among chickens, yes, but your nature, your wings, your spirit, they're built for the sky. That night, the eagle couldn't sleep. He lay beneath the stars, staring upward, his wings curled around him. In his chest he felt something rising. Not fear, not pride, something like truth, awakening. The next morning, just before the others awoke, he climbed atop the fence. The wind brushed his feathers. He spread his wings. At first, he wobbled. He flapped, awkwardly. He lifted an inch, then dropped. But he tried again, and again. Now, and finally, for a moment, he rose, higher than he had ever dared. The chickens below stared in disbelief. The eagle didn't soar that day, not yet, but he flew far enough to know he was never meant to scratch the earth forever. Moral of the story: there are many of us who live like that eagle, forgetting our strength, our gifts, our wings. We believe we are ordinary because we've been told so. But deep inside, a truth waits to be remembered. You were born to rise. The window that faced east. In a quiet hospital ward on the edge of a city, 2 men shared a small sunlit room. One bed was close to the window, a large one that faced east, catching the morning light. The man in that bed had spent years fighting an illness that had weakened his lungs, but not his voice. He was allowed to sit up for an hour each day to help with drainage. The other bed was occupied by a younger man recovering from a long surgery. He was not allowed to sit, turn, or lift his head. His world was limited to the cracks in the ceiling, the sound of his own breath, and the voice of the man beside him. At first, the younger man spoke very little, but each morning, when the older man was propped up, he began to talk softly, not about himself, but about what he could see through the window. There's a little boy feeding pigeons today, he'd say. He's wearing a red scarf, flapping in the wind like a flag. Or, the flowers in the park have begun to bloom. I see purple irises today, like paint splashed across the green. One morning, there's a wedding beneath the tree. The bride is laughing, barefoot on the grass. Each story was a painting the younger man could see with his mind. His pain would soften for a moment. He would listen in silence, imagining the scenes. Day after day, the stories continued. Seasons changed, and so did the colors outside the window. At night, the 2 would sometimes talk. The older man shared memories, gentle jokes, and musings on life. But he never spoke of the window at night. Only in the morning, during that single hour. Months passed. The younger man began to heal, and a strange affection grew between the 2, not based on touch or sight or shared background, but on presence. Then one morning, the younger man awoke, and the room was quiet. No voice, no chair being adjusted, no soft laughter. The nurse came and told him, He was moved to some other ward because of his condition. The younger man asked, almost immediately, if he could be moved to the bed by the window. A few days later, he was helped into the seat where the other man used to sit. He turned slowly toward the window, expecting a park, a street, a garden, maybe even a view of a lake. But what he saw was a blank, gray wall. A towering concrete building stood just a few feet away. There was no boy, no tree, no garden, no irises, nothing. Stunned, he asked the nurse, but he described so much. The people, the light, the colors, every day. What did he see? The nurse paused, then gave him a soft smile. He was blind, she said. He couldn't see anything at all, but he knew you could. So he gave you something to look forward to. He gave you hope until you had enough of your own. The man sat still for a long time, and then he smiled. A tear rolled down his cheek. Not from sadness, but from a kind of silent awe. The kind of feeling that only comes when you realize you've been loved more than you know. Moral of the story: sometimes those with the least to give offer us the most, and then those who can't see the world may still help us see it more clearly. The Elephant and the Six Wise Men. A king in a faraway land brought an elephant into his court. He then summoned 6 men who had been blind since birth. I want you to tell me what an elephant is, the king commanded. The first man touched the elephant's broad side and declared, an elephant is like a wall. The second man felt the tusk and said, no, it is sharp and smooth like a spear. The third man grabbed the wriggling trunk. You are both wrong, he said. An elephant is clearly like a snake. The fourth man touched one of the legs and announced, it is obvious that an elephant is like a large tree trunk. The fifth, who felt the ear, said it was like a giant fan. The sixth, who held the tail, insisted it was like a rope. They soon began to argue, each one certain that their own experience was the absolute truth. The king and his courtiers watched with amusement. A wise man then stepped forward and explained, you are all partially right, but all of you are also wrong. You have each only experienced one part of the elephant. Only when you put all your experiences together can you begin to understand the whole creature. This ancient story reminds us that our own perspective is often limited. To find the truth, we must be open to the experiences and viewpoints of others, for no one person holds the entire picture. And so, the stories settle for the night. Some were gentle, some thoughtful, and maybe, just maybe, one quietly found its way into your heart. Which one stayed with you the most? Let us know if you'd like to share. In a noisy world, thank you for choosing stillness. May your sleep be deep, your dreams kind, and see you in the next video. This is Sleepless Lantern, where stories don't end, they rest beside you.